it doesn't mean you just don't adopt the dog. It's just about knowing exactly what bothers the dog. And if it's just like, oh, it's just this one thing, or don't touch its tail, then at least you have reference for what its boundaries are, and you can work with that. But not having any idea what the dog will allow you to do before you get it is what I worry about most. Welcome to episode 15 of the Pawdoption Guide podcast. Man, I can't believe we're here already. Every time I hit another 5 episodes, I go, whoa. I'm your host, Bethany Muir. I'm a registered veterinary technician and rescue mom of 2 dogs and 1 cat. And this is your one-stop shop for the knowledge and advice that you need to adopt and integrate the rescue dog of your dreams. I'm all about being as informed as possible before adopting a dog, and you'll know that if you've been listening along. I just honestly feel that this helps adopters adjust their expectations and avoid incompatibility between them and their future rescue dog. My goal for dog adopters everywhere is to have them feel prepared for big challenges that they might face when they're integrating their rescue dog into their home. And one of the best ways we can prepare them is by making sure they have all that information up front. So this means being informed throughout the dog adoption journey, and it often means advocating for your own needs by asking questions. So today, we're going to talk about the top 5 questions that I want you to ask the rescue before you adopt that dog. The answers to these questions may not be a simple yes or no, but they should help you decipher whether you're capable of training and caring for that particular dog. And of course, that's why there is such a process these days, is because there are too many people who went out and got a dog, specifically a rescue dog, and weren't prepared for what they were taking on. You know, sometimes there being previous behavior issues that needed to be dealt with. They honestly just hoped for a blank slate and didn't get that, didn't know how to handle it, and often didn't get any help in order to see that relationship through and then return that dog. So, rescues are definitely trying to safeguard for that approach and make sure that everyone is informed nowadays. But of course, there is a lot going on in that process that it is easy to miss things, or to really have it be one-sided and there be a lot of information gathered about you as the owner, but maybe not as easily get all the information about the dog. And of course, being a rescue dog, you're not going to get all of the information about that dog. There will be things that come up that the foster or the rescue did not know about, but we're just going to try to minimize those things so that we can be as prepared as possible. So question number 1, can you provide any insight as to this dog's history or previous owners? This is a really common question, and I think one of the more obvious questions that people would ask. Usually that's one of the first things people say when they see a dog that's available and they think it's too good to be true. They say, oh, why is it up for adoption? Or why did the owners give it up? And although this question is not the exact same as that, it often leads to a similar answer. So if you can find out, what kind of family owned it, was it in a household with kids, or was it in a household with pets? Was that part of the problem? Is there anything about their previous owner that might mirror your situation that might be a barrier to having a great relationship with that dog? That's for the rescue to share if they have that information. And then other than the previous owners specifically, finding out more about what the dog's history was. So was the dog a street dog? Because that lifestyle is very different from a dog that was surrendered that had lived in a comfy home for the last few years. Or was the dog kept outside all the time? Well, you can best believe that dog may have some house training to be done because they never lived in a house until now. With my dog Rory, our Dalmatian that we adopted when she was 8 months, we were told that she was surrendered by a family with children, and basically the father was abusive, and so they needed to go to a safe home away from the father, and they couldn't take their dog with them. So that's why they had to give Rory up. And from that, we learned that she had an abusive male in her life. And then they told us that she had been kept in a crate a lot of the time because of her young age and, them trying to kind of keep her out of that person's way. And it just was almost a safer place for her to be. And then we hear that she had exposure to kids and cats as well. So that's a lot of information that they were able to share about our dog. And certainly we knew that she may have some connection with males and abuse. And so that might be a longer road, but also that she had some exposure to kids and other pets. And so that was definitely a benefit. Question number 2, has this dog had any exposure to children? And if so, how did that go? There will be many situations where the rescue doesn't really know if that dog has had exposure or not. But occasionally, the foster home in which the dog is staying in does have children. So there has been an occurrence for them to share about. With my client's dog that they got as a puppy. It was a Shih Tzu Lhasa Apso puppy, part of a litter that was rescued from a puppy mill. They found that litter of puppies was being raised in a household full of young children. And so that was certainly great exposure for that puppy because it was incredibly young. It was almost born into that household. And so it was there for a few weeks getting that exposure during that really important developmental time and was being adopted into a family with young children. So that was a wonderful scenario for the owners of that dog that was adopted. But of course, that question can go the opposite direction as well. There'll be many times where rescues state that, this dog cannot go to a home with children, and there really is usually a reason for that. So occasionally rescues will just say that based on size. They're concerned about, any liability for adopting out a dog to a family and then, anything occurring. So for the most part, they just try to avoid that. And, I can't say I always agree with that if it's just based on size, but hopefully there is a bit more to it. But of course, if you see that, it never hurts to ask, why do you say that about this dog? Is there anything in particular? And just to ensure that there is reason to discount that dog. Question number 3, has this dog shown any resistance to handling? So you want to ask about how they are for nail trims, cleaning their paws or touching their paws, brushing them, or even carrying them. One thing I always notice, and this is the vet tech in me, who's used to doing nail trims on dogs who really dislike them, is that you can kind of assess the pictures that are shared of these dogs, and based on whether they have really long nails or not, sometimes you can assume, they might not be very good for their nail trims. Usually, the dogs that are up for adoption have been vetted, so they have had the opportunity to have their nails done. And occasionally, it's the vet or the rescue will say, okay, let's not stress the dog out by doing a nail trim at this point in time because they're just going through a lot of transition and we want to allow them to decompress a little. But for the most part, they'll try to do the nails if it's not too stressful an event. So unless the pictures were taken before they were vetted, which is a possibility, just be wary if you see pictures of the dog and they have really long nails. Definitely make sure that's a question you ask, because it's really nice to be able to groom your dog at home, and most certainly it's really nice to be able to easily clean their paws at home too. And training your dog to improve with handling is a slow process. So not everyone is up for that task. And that's why you really do want to look into, whether they allow that touch regularly, or are even going to let you pick them up. If there's resistance, it doesn't mean you just don't adopt the dog. It's just about knowing exactly what bothers the dog. And if it's just like, oh, it's just this one thing, or don't touch its tail, then at least you have reference for what its boundaries are, and you can work with that. But not having any idea what the dog will allow you to do before you get it is what I worry about most. And in a meet and greet, I always suggest that you ask that rescue volunteer or that foster parent to handle the dog from head to toe to tail. So just, again, being aware of what they will and won't allow is really helpful. Question number 4 is maybe one of my favorite questions, and it's specifically, what do you think is this dog's biggest training hurdle or hurdles? Not all rescues will be difficult to integrate into your life. My dog Geller just fit right in. However, it doesn't mean there weren't any hurdles. So occasionally rescues will just say nothing. They're amazing. Do your best to encourage some response about the dog's weaknesses or their less than ideal traits, because I'd be a little wary if they just go, they're perfect. Like I've seen a few profiles like that, and I'm pretty sure they're scams, because a reputable rescue is going to want you to be informed. And almost every dog has something, whether they bark at the door when people arrive. Okay, that's something most people are fine to take on. They don't mind. But at least they would tell you. Or they jump up on people, or, they need to be trained to always go outside for bathroom breaks, or they get a little upset when they go in their crate. But just with a little bit of training, they'll do better. That's okay. Those are all manageable things. They just have to be managed. And it's just about, really, when you ask this question, I just think you get a really honest answer, and it really will help you understand, okay, this is what we're going to be spending most of our time working on or training with our dog. So ultimately, that question really gives you a good idea of the main issues you'll be focusing on, and allows you that chance to consider whether it's within your means to deal with that particular problem or whether it's not. Lastly, question number 5. Do you have any health concerns with this dog? You're going to want to ask about their skin, eyes, ears, mouth, parasites, gastrointestinal symptoms like diarrhea or constipation, mobility, and appetite. So include those additional elements just to cross-check things, because rescues or fosters to say, oh, well, they're in transition, so they're dealing with diarrhea. But, have they been treated for parasites? Because maybe that's a problem going on. But maybe, the diarrhea is actually an ongoing issue. Well, see if anything they've been doing for the diarrhea has been showing any improvement. Okay, well, that's great. Then that's likely what that is. But you don't want things to be brushed off as, not a big deal, but then it really is like a chronic concern for that pet. There is a lot that goes down in the dog adoption process. So, outright asking this question really helps to make sure no information is slipping through the cracks, and that you're covering your bases. So those are the top 5 questions I want you to ask that rescue before you adopt a dog. And if you need more dog adoption advice, I've got some pretty great resources available and coming your way in the Pawdoption Guide membership experience that I'm launching this month. In February, it's happening. If you want to know more about how I'm going to help you before, during, and after adopting the rescue dog of your dreams, just head to the membership waitlist via the link in the show notes, or go to www.pawdoptionguide.com/membership waitlist. And if you join there, then I'll make sure that you're the first to know when this membership launches. I'm getting it up on the platform nowadays, which is really exciting. Means we're getting some of those last videos together for it, preparing that how-to library. So when people have questions about training basics and integrating their dog, they've got some visual examples there as well. So really stoked to bring that to you guys, and excited to help dog adopters again, as I've been taking a bit of a hiatus in actually helping while, getting all this membership stuff together. But of course, if you need tips, right here on the podcast as well. So if you take anything away from today's podcast, I'd like it to be that, we often get caught up in being interviewed during this adoption process. And we get so caught up in being in the spotlight and having all the questions asked of us that we forget to interview the dog too. And so, of course, we can't just ask the dog outright, are you a good dog? Or are you a healthy dog? Or what are you going to give me a hard time with when I bring you home? We can't ask those things to that dog, so we better ask them to the foster parent or the rescue volunteer when we're able. And so this is where these questions are just so relevant, and although they can go unspoken, I really want you to advocate for yourself and ask them. Have a little list with you so that you don't forget. That will be your cue, because again, you get so caught up in just making sure you have all the right answers and you're prepared. But, you need to interview that dog too. You have a right to ask questions, and it just shows that you want to be prepared and that you take dog ownership seriously. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Pawdoption Guide podcast, share a link with your friends or post it in your stories and tag Pawdoption Guide. You can tune in for new episodes on Thursdays and keep tabs on what I'm up to on my Instagram or my Facebook page. Until next time.